You ever have a day where you think the universe must be pulling a prank on you? I mean, $10 million. $10 million was the number my HOA slapped on me after my house survived a hurricane. Not because I caused damage, but because apparently I created the hurricane itself. You heard that right. Weather manipulation. Yeah, that actually ended up in a court document, with neighbors eyed. Just pulled from the rubble signing sworn affidavits saying I summoned a Category 4 storm to destroy their homes, while somehow keeping mine perfectly safe. Their evidence? My place was too ready, too fortified, too suspicious. And now, because I prepped for a disaster, I was facing bankruptcy, being ostracized, and maybe even jail, for the crime of having the audacity to plan ahead. You ever get punished for doing the right thing? I need to know, because what happened next got way darker than I ever imagined. Let me back up a sec. I've spent 30 years figuring out why things fail. That means when hurricane season rolls around, I don't trust weather apps or the HOA's community alert system. I pull up satellite maps. I track those storms from Africa across the whole Atlantic, every wobble in the model, every change in wind shear. Occupational hazard, I guess. Hurricane Gideon looked like trouble 2 weeks before the talking heads even mentioned its name. I told my neighbor Catherine she ought to evacuate. She just gave me that sly little smile and said, "Funny how you know more than the professionals, Patrick. Almost like you've got inside information." She wasn't joking. As she left, she tapped her red notebook and said, "Community means sharing, you know, especially when some people have more than others." The way she looked at my house, I knew right then, she wasn't just tracking HOA dues. She was tracking me, my preparations, my late wife's insurance money, the weird way my house stuck out on the block. Piece by piece, she was building a file. And then, sure enough, I got a certified letter from a law firm with a name I'd never heard, saying I was being sued for creating an asymmetric disaster preparedness advantage that hurt community property values. You can't make this stuff up. I called my lawyer friend, Raymond, who laughed until he realized it was real. "That's HOA territory," he said. "Logic doesn't always apply." The suit? Just shy of $10 million. Oddly close to what I'm worth on paper. Turns out Catherine, with her red notebook, had done the math, down to the last dollar. I felt like livestock being appraised for slaughter. At the next HOA meeting, the room was packed. Catherine stood up front, hair perfect, pearls shining, red notebook open. She said my fortress of a house was driving up everyone else's insurance, making the neighborhood look bad. I tried to explain, insurance doesn't work that way. Risk is assessed per property, not as a block. But she had everyone eating out of her hand. Then, during a break, I caught her checking her phone, her casino app, not her email. A negative balance, deep in the red. The puzzle pieces started falling together. That night, I tore through every document I had. Turns out, the HOA had been charging everyone double for years, skimming hundreds of thousands while keeping coverage limits a secret. Thomas, the treasurer, broke down in tears at the grocery store when I confronted him. His wife needed expensive care. Catherine paid him a bonus to look the other way. "You'd do the same?" He told me. I wanted to argue, but truth was, I might have. That's how they get you. 3 days before the storm, I caught Catherine meeting an insurance adjuster. She made sure payouts would be minimized, claims denied, the fine print working in her favor. She wasn't just skimming premiums. She was setting up a disaster where she'd walk away rich and everyone else would be ruined. When Gideon hit, it was like the end of the world. I hunkered down in my safe room, the house shaking so hard I thought the bolts would rip out of the concrete. But it held. When I crawled out at dawn, the street looked like a war zone. Houses flattened, people wandering in shock. I helped where I could, dragged Harold out from under a collapsed carport, powered Mrs. Patterson's oxygen machine. With my generator, passed out supplies. For a few hours, folks thanked me, hugged me. For a few hours, it felt like being prepared actually meant something. Then Catherine showed up. Her own place totaled, clutching that red notebook like a religious relic. Before the day was out, the insurance company had denied every claim. Johnson got $50,000 on a $300,000 loss. Mrs. Patterson was denied entirely. The pattern was clear. Catherine had engineered it all. And then, right on cue, started whispering, "Anyone think it's odd Patrick's house is fine?" By day 3, Someone had spray-painted Weather Wizard across my garage. The rumors were wildfire. People I'd saved now glared at me like I'd caused the storm. That night, I got a call from a reporter, Emily Carter. She'd been tracking Catherine, real name Karen Strickland, through 8 disasters across 4 states. The same scam, over and over. Embezzle, sabotage insurance, frame the most prepared person as a villain. One guy hadn't survived the harassment. The rest just paid up or vanished. I was number 9. The court hearing was a circus. Cameras everywhere. Catherine's lawyer paraded my weather tracking as evidence I'd known too much. The judge froze my assets, barred me from leaving the state, left me stranded. Afterward, Emily Carter laid out all the proof, Catherine's real identity, the string of ruined lives. But we needed that red notebook on camera to nail her for good. The plan? Bait her into a public confession. I staged a press conference, told her I'd confess to controlling the weather. She couldn't resist. That red notebook was in her lap, pen poised. I stood up and said, "You want to know how I did it?" I didn't. Because that's insane. The dam broke. Catherine went off, yelling, cursing, admitting she'd stolen the money to cover gambling debts. Deputies moved in. Her lawyer tried to slip away, but got caught too. Turns out, he'd represented her in other states. The whole operation unraveled in minutes. 6 months later, Catherine got 8 years. Restitution to the victims, mandatory addiction treatment. Thomas's wife finally got decent care. The HOA brought in outside accountants, regular audits, actual transparency. Neighbors apologized, but I told them, learn from it. Trust, but verify. Magic isn't real. Insurance fraud is. 2 years on, I teach disaster preparedness at a community college. First rule, if someone claims supernatural powers, check their bank statements first. Second rule, there's no magic, just preparation, fraud, and really slick marketing. When a student asked if she should worry about her HOA president snooping on her property, I told her, trust your gut. Document everything. And don't let fear turn you against your neighbors. These days, the red ledger sits in an evidence locker. I visit Sarah's grave, my wife, bring her sunflowers, tell her the case is closed. The community's stronger now, wiser. Some storms you can see coming. Others, you only recognize in the wreckage. But every single time, preparation beats panic, even when the real storm has nothing to do with the weather. So here's my question for you. Have you ever been blamed for something just because you did the right thing? Leave a comment, tell your story. And hey, smash that like button if you believe in being prepared, because sometimes the most dangerous storms are the ones that smile at you and carry a red notebook that you'd think after everything, surviving the hurricane, the lawsuit, that insane press conference. Life would just settle down, right? The bad guys locked up, the community wiser, my reputation kind of stitched back together. Yeah, not quite. The truth is, the real rebuilding doesn't happen when the cameras are rolling or the court hands down a verdict. It happens in all those weird, quiet moments afterward, when you're just trying to figure out how to live in a place that still carries the scars. The weeks after Catherine's sentencing felt surreal. Suddenly, neighbors who used to cross the street to avoid me started stopping by, usually holding a casserole or a six-pack, awkward as teenagers at prom. Mrs. Patterson started walking past my porch every evening, giving me a little wave, sometimes stopping to chat. We never really talked about the storm or the trial. Mostly, we talked about the weather, her grandkids, that creaky fence she needed help mending. Funny how people act like nothing happened. Like you can patch over suspicion with apple pie and small talk. You know what I mean? But underneath the surface, the neighborhood really was changing. The new HOA was run by a committee, no more emperors with red notebooks. They hired an independent accountant, started posting every expense and policy online, even held potlucks just so folks would actually talk face to face. At first, people showed up for the food and gossip, but after a while, they started showing up for each other. There was something kind of beautiful about it. You could feel folks loosening up, laughing more, keeping an eye out for one another, not because they had to, but because now they wanted to. Me? I threw myself into the community college class. Disaster Preparedness 101, every Thursday night. 60 students, ages 19 to 72, most of them just wanting a little peace of mind. I taught them the same lessons that saved my house: how to read a weather chart, where to stash your generator, what paperwork to keep in a fireproof box. And every semester, there was always one kid who'd ask, how do you prepare for people, not just storms? That one always stumped me. Still does. But I'd tell them, sometimes you can't. Sometimes you just have to trust your gut, know who you are, and be ready to stand your ground when it counts. One night, after class, a woman named Jenna stopped me in the parking lot. She was quiet all semester, always sitting in the back, never raising her hand. She told me her HOA had started asking for keys to everyone's homes for emergency inspections. She didn't feel right about it. I just looked at her and said, trust that instinct. Document everything. Neighbors are neighbors, not landlords. She hugged me, which, let me tell you, is not a thing that happens often after a lecture on sump pumps and wind loads. That fall, hurricane season rolled back around. The sky got heavy with that old familiar tension. But this time, when I looked down the block, I saw something different. Storm shutters on almost every window, emergency kits on porches, families running practice drills. And the best part? I didn't organize any of it. The neighborhood handled it on their own. Mrs. Patterson knocked on my door before the first big storm warning and handed me a slice of her banana bread. We're ready, Patrick, she said. But you're still on generator duty. I laughed, and it felt real. Like maybe we'd all come out the other side, scarred but stronger. And yet, there's always a yet, isn't there? Not everyone heals the same way. Some folks still look at me with that wary glance, like maybe I know too much for my own good. Sometimes I still catch a hint of red on a passing notebook and feel my stomach clench. I guess that's the price of being the weird prepared guy. But you know what? I'll take that over the alternative, any day. The strangest thing happened about a year later. I got a letter in the mail, postmarked from Texas. No return address. Inside was a photocopy of a newspaper article, another HOA, another natural disaster, and a president caught embezzling insurance funds. This time, they'd been caught before the storm hit. Someone had tipped off the authorities. An anonymous email, no signature. Paper clipped to the article was a note. Not every storm can be stopped. But sometimes you can warn the right people. Keep teaching. E.C. I sat there for a long while, staring at that note. Emily Carter, the reporter, still out there digging, still watching the weather, still making sure the next Catherine doesn't get away with it. I grinned. Guess I'm not the only stubborn one. Sometimes, I drive past the old community center and see the next generation of neighbors, kids chasing each other across the parking lot, parents arguing good-naturedly about barbecue recipes, somebody passing around sign-up sheets for hurricane response teams. The old fear. The bitterness, it's faded, replaced by something that looks suspiciously like hope. Every now and then, someone asks if I'd do anything differently, if I'd still build that safe room. Still obsess over forecasts, still stand up and fight when it would have been easier to just let it go. And you know, there are days I wonder if my life might have been quieter if I'd just kept my head down. But quiet isn't always better. Sometimes, surviving means being the one person who refuses to give in, even when everyone else calls you crazy. So, here's what I tell my students, my neighbors. Anyone willing to listen, be prepared. For storms, for scams, for the day when doing the right thing makes you the villain in someone else's story. Don't let the mob, the loudest voices, or the person with the shiniest notebook decide who you are. The world's always going to have another Catherine waiting in the wings. But it's also got a whole lot of good people ready to step up. Sometimes all they need is to see someone else go first. Now, I want to hear from you, seriously. Ever had to stand alone, or get blamed just for being the one who prepared or saw through the lies? Drop your story in the comments, because trust me, somebody out there needs to know they're not the only one. And don't forget, hit like, share this with a friend who's always too prepared. And remember, the real storms aren't always in the sky. Sometimes, the only thing scarier than a hurricane is a neighbor with a grudge and a red notebook. Stay sharp out there.